The Cryx force is being led by P. Denny, and her battle group is 2 Deathrippers. And attached to P. Denny is a Skarlock Thrall. He's not in the battle group, of course. There is a full unit of Bane Thralls with UA, and the solo Bane Lord Tartarus. There is Iacos with Nightmare in his battle group, a Pistol Wraith, a Warwitch Siren, and a Statistics Raider Captain, and a full unit of Statistics Raiders with UA. And that is 50 points of Cryx. The Khador force is being led by Kommander Orsus Zoktavir, also known as Butcher 2. And his battle group is a Spriggan. And attached to Butcher is a War Dog. There is also Madelyn Corbeau, Ordic Courtesan, a unit of Widowmakers with the Widowmaker Marksman, a unit of Greylord Ternion, Yuri the Axe, a Man-O-War Drakhun with dismount, a full unit of Black Dragon Iron Fangs with UA, the Iron Fang Kovnik, Fenris, the Great Bears of Gallowswood, Gormadulf, Rogue Alchemist, and Eiryss, Angel of Retribution. And that is 50 points of Khador. We are playing the Steamroller 2014 scenario, Fire Support. There are 2 flags and 2 objectives near the center of the table, and this scenario has a kill box. If a player decides to go after the enemy flag, that is the one that is farther away from him with the objective farthest away from him, the enemy objective must be destroyed first as it contests the flag. Flags can be controlled for 1 control point and dominated for 2, while objectives can be destroyed for 1 control point. The first player to 5 control points wins the game. We roll off to see who goes first, with Cryx rolling a 6, then Khador rolls a 6 as well. We roll again, Cryx rolls another 6, and Khador rolls a 1. However, Cryx decides to go second. Khador deploys in around the center of their deployment zone, with Butcher and Spriggan in the dead center. To the left of the Spriggan's flank is a Man-O-War Drakhun, and behind the Drakhun are the Great Bears of Gallowswood and the Greylord Ternion. Behind Butcher is the War Dog, and to Butcher's right flank are the Fenris, Gormadulf, the Black Dragon Iron Fang Pikemen, and the Iron Fang Kovnik. And here's how Khador has deployed with the entire table in the picture. Cryx deploys in a relatively straight line in their deployment zone, with the Bane Thralls in the center of the deployment zone, along with P. Denny. To the right of the Bane Thralls is a Deathripper and a Pistol Wraith. To the left of them is Bane Lord Tartarus, another Deathripper, Iacos and Nightmare, and the Warwitch Siren. They're in a straight line just so they can just start running immediately without clogging themselves up. And there's also the Bane Thrall Standard Bearer all the way in the back. That way he doesn't get sniped out very easily. And here's how Cryx's deployment looks in regards to the whole table. Khador advance deploys its Widowmakers in front of the Black Dragons. That way they can get on the hill, gain the elevation bonus, and be able to ignore intervening models on targets that they want to grab. And in front of the Man-O-War Drakhun are Yuri the Axe and Eiryss, Angel of Retribution. And here's how the advanced deployment is in regards to the table. Cryx advance deploys the Statistics Raiders to the left of the Warwitch Siren, with the idea of running up with desperate pace on the Statistics Captain in order to jam up the Widowmakers and prevent them from shooting, as well as being an overall nuisance in the table. And here's how both armies look after both advanced deployments have been completed. Khador, turn 1. Butcher 2 does not gain focus normally. Instead, he has a special rule called Arcane Dementia, where he generates d6 plus 1 focus at the start of every control phase. He generates 3 focus, and allocates 1 to the Spriggan. The Widowmakers then activate, and they advance on top of the hill. They're now defense 16 against spells and ranged attacks, and they're also able to ignore intervening models with the elevation bonus, so long as their target is not within an inch of an intervening model. Yuri activates, and he simply runs. The Spriggan activates, and he also runs. The Man-O-War Drakhun activates, and he runs. The Widowmaker Marksman activates, and advances behind his fellow Widowmakers. Fenris activates, and he runs. I have to be especially careful about his placement, as he's an abomination. So if my Widowmakers are within 3 inches of him, they have to make a command check at command 8. So they may or may not pass. Fortunately though, I place Fenris just good enough that he's out of abomination range of the Widowmakers. The Black Dragons then activate and they run. They look to stick close together, that way they can shield wall easily when they choose to do so in the following turns, or just basically be right next to each other in command without blocking any sort of movement from other models. The Great Bears of Gallowswood activate and run. Yadovich and Volkov decide to run over the wall, but Kolsk decides that's a bad idea, so he stays behind the wall for the +4 cover against shooting. The Iron Fang Kovnik activates and he runs to follow his Black Dragons. Eiryss activates and she runs. The Greylord Ternion activate and they run. Butcher activates and he simply runs. The War Dog activates and runs to follow Butcher, and stays within 3 inches of him for the perfect guard dog bonus. Madelyn Corbeau activates and runs, and Gormor the Wolf activates, advances, and places a smoke bomb within an inch of him. Cryx, turn 1. Denny gains all 7 of her focus, and Eiryss gains all 4 of his focus. Nightmare places prey onto Butcher, and Eiryss allocates 1 to Nightmare, and Denny allocates 1 to each Deathripper. The Statistics Captain activates and advances, and does Desperate Pace onto the Statistics Raiders, giving them +2 inches of movement in that activation. The Raiders then activate and they run, with a potential run distance of a massive 16 inches, thanks to Desperate Pace and being Speed 7 base. And here's the final placement of the Raiders. The War Witch Siren activates and runs. Eiryss activates, advances, and jumps. Then he checks his controller to make sure Nightmare is in it, and then he casts Escort, giving Jax in his controller +2 inches of movement, and he gains +2 armor while within 3 inches of a Jack in his battle group. The Bane Thralls activate and they run. And the standard stays far away from the action. The Deathripper on the right activates, and he runs. The Pistol Wraith activates, and he advances towards the Man-O-War Drakhun. He takes a shot at the Man-O-War Drakhun and is in range. fires his first shot and hits, and his dice -7 as a Drakhun is armor 19, and deals no damage. Then he takes his second shot, which hits, and deals no damage. Then his potential death chill shot hits, and now the Drakhun is death chilled, meaning that when he activates, he must sacrifice his movement or action. And then Nightmare activates, and he runs. Right next to Fenris. The Skarlock Thrall activates, advances, and Denny activates and advances behind the Skarlock Thrall. She checks her control area, thinking about feeding but considered it too early to do so. Then the second Deathripper activates, and he runs. Right behind Nightmare. Banelord Tartarus activates, and he runs. Here's the end of round 1, and both armies are getting closer to each other, of course. That usual round 1 of War Machine. Most armies just run unless there's some shooting involved. Either way, Butcher has the first go at the action. So let's see what happens in round 2. Khador, turn 2. Smoke cloud from Gorman goes away, and then Butcher generates his random focus for the turn, and generates 2, and hangs onto the 2 focus. The Widowmaker Marksman first activates, and he decides to forfeit his movement to aim, becoming Rat 10. And he decides to take a shot at the Deathripper behind Nightmare. He's in range, and he has line of sight. He hits the Deathripper, and he does only 4 damage to the Deathripper, and he puts it on column 4, thanks to Sniper. Then Butcher activates, checks for killbox, moves back, as he's kind of scared of the Bane Thralls, and then he casts Fury onto the Black Dragons, giving them +3 to melee damage rolls, but -1 defense. Then the Black Dragons activate, and they issue a charge order. So one Black Dragon charges Nightmare, and we forget to do a free strike right here. Another Black Dragon issues a charge at Nightmare. Another one issues another charge. Another one declares a charge at a Bane Thrall. He's out of range. And another one declares a charge at Nightmare. He's most likely out of melee range. And then we check, and he is out of melee range. The rest of the Black Dragons simply run up. And then the Black Dragons decide to use their mini-feat, Iron Zeal, which gives them +4 armor, and they cannot be made stationary or knocked down. So the first charge attack on Nightmare goes, and he needs a 7 to hit Nightmare. And he hits him, rolling an 11. So he is dice -2, and does a whopping 13 points of damage to Nightmare. And since he has Precise Strike, he puts it on column 2, which knocks out Nightmare's movement, reducing him to defense 7. So then another charge attack on Nightmare goes, hits, critically knocks him down, and then does a massive 12 points of damage to Nightmare's column 5, ripping out both of his arms. And then the Black Dragon that we should have done a free strike on automatically hits and finishes off Nightmare. Nightmare goes down into 3 black dragons. Quite insane. So this, of course, leaves Fenris open and able to do whatever he wants. So he activates next and moves to be in melee range of the Statistics Raiders. And then we check for Abomination, and they pass, rolling an 8. Then Fenris does an attack on a Statistics Raider. He needs 6 to hit, and he hits, kills that Raider. She explodes, and then he does a Berserk attack onto, well, first we do a leader promotion, and then he berserks onto the model that's farthest away from him. So then he declares that attack. He hits. She dies, exploding, of course. Then he does another berserk attack on a raider in front of him, and misses. Then he uses his second initial Fell Blade, and misses again. So that's my Cryx opponent being very happy. Then Eiryss activates, moves over, and takes a shot at the Pistol Wraith. Since he's now no longer incorporeal, he can be targeted by non-magical weapons. She hits the Pistol Wraith, rolling crazy, and then kills him outright. And that's the Cryx opponent basically hammering him down, as that's how much punishment that he has received from Eiryss. Then the Drakhun activates and decides to sacrifice his action and moves. Advances. Yuri the Axe activates, and he advances into melee range of the Bane Thralls. And he checks his melee range, and then adjusts his facing. I'm not exactly sure if this is an illegal thing now. Let me know in the comments. Then he does a Thresher attack on 4 Bane Thralls. So this is the first attack on the Bane through his left. He hits, and being Power Strength 13 Weapon Master, he outright kills them, the ones that he hits. So this is the tough roll on the first Bane Thrall, which fails. Then this is another Thresher attack, which hits, and automatically kills him. We don't need to roll this, and he passes his tough roll, so he's knocked down. Then another Thresher attack. He misses. Then in the last Thresher attack, he hits, automatically kills him, and this Bane Thrall fails his tough roll, and he goes away. And the Spriggan activates, advances up, and throws out some targeting flares at a Bane Thrall, and he fires off a second one. Actually, he fires off his grenade at the Bane Thrall that he just lit up. So a targeting flare basically allows to ignore stealth and clouds to models that are inside of the flare. Of course, this grenade automatically misses since it was out of range, so it deviates 1 to the 3. 1 inch to the 3, and clips the Bane Thrall that was in the flare. So this is dice minus 11 being PAL 5, and it actually kills, dice minus 10. So this actually kills the Bane Thrall, but he makes his tough roll. Then we do another blast damage on another Bane Thrall, and he survives. And then on the Deathripper, and he takes no damage, rolling double ones. Then the Widowmakers activate, and one of them decides to take a shot at the knockdown Bane Thrall. Since he's elevated, he ignores the Black Dragons, and he hits him, snipes him, and he passes his tough roll. Then the Widowmaker Capitan fires at the same Bane Thrall, is in range. She hits, snipes him, and he does not tough. Another Widowmaker decides to take a shot at the Deathripper that's right next to Nightmare. However, he's engaged, so he's a massive defense 19, so this may not work. Of course, he misses. And we check to see if the Black Dragon is hit, and he is not. Then the last Widowmaker decides to take a shot at the Deathripper, because there's no other valid targets, and he automatically hits him. So he's dice minus 4 for damage, and does 4 damage. And being a sniper, chooses where the damage goes, which is put on the 5. Then the Iron Fang Kovnik activates and advances. Gorm DeWolf activates, advances, and places a smoke cloud in front of Butcher, trying to make sure that he's within the inch. And then the Greybeards activate, and they simply advance, staying in defensive line. The Greylord Ternion activate, advance around, and they're going to start placing clouds. So one Ternion places a cloud on the Spriggan, another Ternion places a cloud on Kolsk, and for lack of better targets, the last Greylord Ternion puts a cloud on the Manor Drakhun. The Madelyn Corbeau activates, and she simply advances around. Well, actually, runs around. For proper positioning to move around a possible Butcher. And then the War Dog activates, advances to be behind the wall. Cryx, turn 2. Dead Rise triggers on the Bane Thrall, standing him up in the maintenance phase, and then Iacos drops Escort and gains all 4 of his focus. Denny gains all 7 of her focus, and decides to allocate 1 to a Deathripper. The Skarlock Thrall activates first and uses Soul Slave, allowing him to cast one of his caster's spells for free and puts Ghost Walk on the allocated Deathripper. Then the second Deathripper activates and just moves around slightly, but stays in the melee range of the Black Dragon that's engaging him, as we've shown here. Then Banelord Tartarus activates and walks around the objective that's next to him. He's looking to spawn some more Bane Thralls. However, he's considering doing a Thresher attack and sees that he's only in melee range of 1 Black Dragon, and it's possible that he can hit another Bane Thrall and the Deathripper, so he does only the single attack to the Black Dragon in front of him. But before he does that, he places Curse onto the Black Dragons. So he swings and hits, and will most likely kill them, and he does. He kills that single Black Dragon. So he spawns his Bane Thrall, which has to be in his command range, and within formation, and within 3 inches of another Bane Thrall member. So then the Bane Thralls activate and they issue a charge order, so some of these will not be getting the charge bonus, but that doesn't matter because since they have Dark Shroud and they're Weapon Masters, the Black Dragons will essentially be armor 16 against these Bane Thralls that are power strength 11 Weapon Masters. And what's usually the case against Cryx is that you bring high defense, but they're now bringing ways around that, and Banelord Tartarus' Curse makes these Bane Thralls essentially mat 8 against the Black Dragons, and they need only 5s to hit compared to 7s. The rest of the Bane Thralls go into Yuri the Axe, and they don't need the charge bonus either, as he is only armor 14, which gets reduced down to armor 12, thanks to Dark Shroud. So, if they hit, he'll most likely die. Then the Bane Thrall officer advances, makes sure everyone's in command range, and the standard slightly stays back. So the first Bane Thrall swings. This should have missed, as that was a 4, and they need 5s to hit. And then another one swings. He hits, and he kills him. The next one swings. He hits. And it looks like he kills. So this Black Dragon also dies. Then a swing on Yuri, which hits with a hard 8, and he just goes away. And Denny activates. She advances forward. Then she checks her control area and decides it is now time to feat. And then we check to make sure if Butcher's in the feat range, and he is. He most definitely is. So, Denny checks again, and we check the Drakhun. He's out, but Eiryss is in. And we check that the Widowmakers are also in. And then she decides to pop feet. So that's everything. That's basically -2 to all the stats, except... Actually, it is to everything, including focus. So now the Deathripper is apparently doing something to a Black Dragon. Oh yes, she casted Influence on him. Actually, sorry, Crippling Grasp. So now they're -4 to their important stats. Then she casts Influence on a Black Dragon. And he apparently swings and kills... Yes, he swings and kills a Black Dragon from there to there. And there he dies. So now the second Deathripper, the one that had Ghostwalk on him, decides to run. And because of Ghostwalk, he ignores free strikes. Then the Statistics Captain walks up to melee range of Fenris. And then we check for an Abomination test. And she passes. And then decides to make an attack on Fenris, which hits. And she's a Weapon Master with this attack, so she does some damage to him. So it does 6 damage to him. So he's got 4 left. And then the rest of the Raiders, they activate, and they move to engage Fenris. And then we do a Abomination check after the first model moves. I remember to do that right now after the third model finishes moving. So then we do the Abomination check, as it's done when a model moves. So the Raiders pass, and then he continues moving. And because Fenris is a larger base, it doesn't matter if the melee ranges of smaller base models go over their friendly models. It's because they're targeting a larger base than them, so they can see them. Melee requires line of sight. It doesn't matter if you're swinging over a friendly model. That's usually a case of confusion, but that's not how melee ranges work. And I mentioned this because my opponent was thinking the same thing that I told him otherwise. So here he goes. He's now doing combined melee attacks onto Fenris. And this one misses. And the horns also hit. And now, actually, they all missed. So now there's another 2 main combined melee attack, and this hits and does some amount of damage. Oh, they also popped their mini-feat Power Soul, which makes them Weapon Masters. So now Fenris is dismounted, and we're using the Soul token and an Aim token to mark the front and back of his base, so I can place them accordingly. So now a few of them also place some more attacks on him, doing quite a good amount of damage, being Weapon Masters on mini-feat turn. And so this does all but 1 damage to Fenris. So now Eiryss activates. He puts Grievous Wounds on himself from his spell. And so then he advances. He advances forward. And then he jumps to be in melee range of Fenris. So then he makes an attack on Fenris. He boosts to hit and hits, and then Fenris just flat out dies. And since he has Grievous Wounds, that ignores tough. Lord Siren then activates, skirts ever so closely on the edge of the table, just to get it in a better position for the next round. She runs, not advances. And here's the end of round 2. The armies have finally collided. The Statistics Raiders have killed Fenris, thanks to some actually bad rolling on Fenris' part, and the Black Dragons and Bane Thralls have now collided. Commander Drakhun has an open charge lane, and Butcher, he might be able to kill Denny, but not on V-turn, not yet. So now there is, of course, no scoring on scenario. Khador, turn 3. The clouds from the Greylord Ternion and Gorman de Wolf expire, including the one that is on the Manor Drakhun. The Madelyn Corbeau's Intrigue move triggers with a Bane Thrall right in front of her, and she checks her command range of 9 inches. Sees Butcher is in that range, and he moves 3 inches as a result. Butcher then generates D6 plus 1 minus 2 focus due to Denny's The Withering, so he generates only 2 focus. and he lets Fury drop. Then Eiryss activates and advances towards the Black Dragons. She takes a shot at the officer, looking to remove Crippling Grasp from the unit. She only needs not Snake Eyes to hit, and she does so, and Crippling Grasp goes away. Then she does a snipe point of damage to the officer, that way she doesn't kill him. And so he takes the 1 point there. Then Butcher activates and checks Kill Box. And then he recasts Fury onto the Black Dragons. That way he wouldn't have to upkeep it and then have it drop and then not be able to cast it again on them. And then Butcher decides to do nothing and stay where he is. So the Iron Fang thing activates and he does a Shield March onto the Black Dragons. That way they can move their normal speed now of 6 inches while on the shield wall. So then the Black Dragons activate and they advance. Just shuffling around a little bit, that way they can get some good targets as well as being able to actually perform attacks. However, they're only mat 4 this round, so they're most likely not going to be hitting anything besides on the objective. So these two do a combined melee attack onto... these two do a combined melee attack on Greylord Tartarus. And they miss. Then one Black Dragon decides to swing at the objective, and he does 5 points of damage to it. And then a Black Dragon swings at a Bane Thrall and misses. Another Black Dragon swings at a Bane Thrall, misses again. And the last Black Dragon swings at another Bane Thrall. He hits, which automatically kills him, being Power Strength 16, and he passes his Chuff Roll. Then there's one more attack left, which hits, auto-killing, and he does not pass his Tough Roll. Then the Widowmaker Marksman activates, shuffles around, and he takes a shot at Iagos, and he is just within the stealth range. He takes a shot, he hits, and he outright kills him. Then the Spriggan activates and advances ever so slightly and places a flare onto Denny. Then he places another flare onto some Bane Thralls. The Widowmakers then activate and they decide to aim, and they start to take some shots. So one of them fires at the objective and hits and does no damage to it. Another one takes a shot, hits, and also chooses to roll damage. Actually, it's a redeclare of target at Denny, which misses. Oh, sorry, this was at the objective and does on a point. So then we have another Widowmaker firing at Denny. And misses. The last Widowmaker takes a shot at the objective, hits, and rolls no damage again. Then Gorman activates, he advances up, and he places a smoke cloud. Kommander Drakhun activates and advances to be next to the flag. The Great Bears activate and they simply advance, staying in defensive line. And the Greylord Ternion activate, and they advance as well. And they place clouds out. The Wardog activates, stays behind Butcher, and the Man-O-War scores a point, so Khador has 1 control point to Cryx's 0. Cryx, turn 3. Denny gets her full stack of 7 focus, and we do a mistake here, which is to upkeep Ghostwalk. However, Ghostwalk is not an upkeep spell. Then 1 focus is allocated to that Deathripper. The second Deathripper activates and moves on top of the wreck marker and stays just in the melee range of a Black Dragon. That way he doesn't proc a free strike. The Greylord Tartarus activates and advances around, and he has Ghostly, so he ignores free strikes. He's looking for an optimal position for Thresher. And here, Banelord Tartarus is on top of the flag, and we don't notice this until later on, so keep that in mind. So now we're checking the melee range on Banelord Tartarus for the models that he can do for a Thresher attack, and this Standard Bearer is not supposed to be in the melee range as he's on top of the flag. So then Banelord Tartarus does an attack and hits, and outright kills a Black Dragon. And then he places a Bane Thrall within his command range of 9 and within formation of 3 inches of the model in that unit. Then he does another Thresher attack, and this is a cocked die, so he rerolls, and it hits. And that outright kills him as well. And then he misses another Black Dragon, and this is where we're placing the second Bane Thrall after he killed a Black Dragon. Then he's attacking the officer. He hits, and he's waiting to do damage, and he deals exactly 4 damage to the Black Dragon officer, which kills him. Now we move over Banelord Tartarus, and then this clip shows that he's on top of the flag once again. Then the Deathripper activates, and should not be able to run through this house as it did not have Ghost Walk on it. Remember, it's not an upkeep spell. Then the Skarlock Thrall activates, and then he gives the Bane Thralls Ghost Walk. The Bane Thralls activate, and they issue a charge order. This one charges, but does not get the charge bonus. Likewise for this Bane Thrall, and this Bane Thrall, and this Bane Thrall. Then one Bane Thrall decides to charge Eiryss, and makes it. And the Madelyn Drakhun decides, and he countercharges, and makes an attack on the Bane Thrall. Attacks, hits him, and kills him outright. And then the rest of the Bane Thralls continue their charging. And then the Bane Thrall charges Eiryss. And then the last one charges Eiryss with another Grunt running, and the officer decides he's checking his command range, and the Standard Bearer just moves to stay right within command range. So then we have an attack on the Madelyn Drakhun, which hits. And does only 2 points of damage to the Madelyn Drakhun. And that attack missed Eiryss. Then we have another attack on Eiryss, which misses. Then we have an attack on a Black Dragon, which misses. Then another attack on a Black Dragon, which hits. And that kills him. Then we have another attack on a Black Dragon, which misses. And another attack. This one hits, and he just outright dies. Then Deneghra activates and advances to be behind the Bane Thralls. Then she casts Arcing through the Deathripper. She's casting Crippling Grasp and boosting to hit. And hits anyway, even though he didn't need the extra die. And so Crippling Grasp is on the Widowmakers. Then she's casting Influence on a Widowmaker, which misses. Then the Statistics Raiders activate, the War Witch Siren, and does a spray on the Iron Fang Kovnik. It catches a Widowmaker and the Iron Fang Kovnik. So on the Iron Fang Kovnik first, hit misses him. Then on the Widowmaker, and that misses him as well. Then the Statistics Raider Captain activates, advances, and does Death Surpace on the Statistics Raiders. And the Raiders go ahead and run. The running continues. With some very, very precise movements here with the Raiders. That way they don't get hit by free strikes from either the Marksman or the Iron Fang Kovnik. And the scenario does not change whatsoever, and here's the end of round 3. The statistics have jammed up once again. Deneghra is staring directly at Butcher, and Butcher has a clear lane towards Denny. What will happen in round 4? Let's find out. Khador, turn 4. The clouds from Gorman and the Greylord Ternion disappear, as well as the flares from the Spriggan. Butcher then does a Madelyn Corbeau intrigue move and moves 3 inches directly forward. And off to the side a little bit. Then, through Arcane Dementia, Butcher then generates his random focus and generates all 7 possible focus. And then he drops Fury on the Black Dragons. The Iron Fang Kovnik activates first and takes a swing at the Statistics Raider UA. He hits and outright kills her. Then Gorman activates and tosses an acid bomb at one of the raiders that is currently engaged with the Iron Fang Kovnik. He misses. However, he deviates to the 3 inches. So, since this is not a blast damage, all of the raiders under this AoE of 3 take a PAL 12 and they all die. Just like that. And then they take a massive casualties test and they fail. The Madelyn Corbeau activates and moves out of the way of Butcher. And the Black Dragons then activate and they shield wall. And one of them takes a free strike from the Bane Thrall, which misses by 1. Then the other Black Dragon just moves out of the way as well. And he should also proc a free strike. And the Standard Bearer also moves off to the side. So they actually do a shield wall order and they're doing combined melee attack on Banelord Tartarus, and they automatically hit him and he is knocked down and he just dies outright. Then Butcher activates, and he casts Ravager on himself, which gives him Berserk. Then he charges a Bane Thrall. And with Homicidal Maniac, with every single attack that he does, he must make a Thresher 360-degree attack, meaning he attacks all models, friendly or enemy, and he has no front arc, so he's attacking everyone around him. So there's the Homicidal Maniac attack, as I was just describing. And so that Bane Thrall was knocked down, and this is an attack on Denny, and he's boosting to hit, and he hits, and he does a crazy amount of damage, of course, leaving Denny with 3 boxes left. And there's an attack on a Bane Thrall. This attack hits exactly, and he fails his tough roll. Sorry, and then we have an attack on another Bane Thrall, which hits, automatically kills him, and he fails his tough roll. He also dies. Then we have the attacks on the Black Dragons now. So this is on the Black Dragon unit leader, which hits and automatically kills him. And then we have an attack on the newly promoted unit attachment, which hits and kills him. And then we have on the Standard Bearer, which hits and kills him as well. Then Ravager triggers, and he does another free attack, Berserk attack onto the Bane Thrall, and kills him outright. Then Homicidal Maniac triggers. There's an attack on Denny. He boosts to hit. He hits. And Denny just outright dies. And that's the game, ending with a Khador victory. And here's how the end of the game table looks like, with a nice clear charge lane that Butcher had towards Deneghra, and killing a bunch of his own models along the way. Well, that's Butcher 2 for you.